Today I'd like to talk with you about the Oral Torah. The kingdom of Israel was strong and united under Kings Saul and David and Solomon. But after Solomon's death, it split into two separate territories. The northern 10 tribes under Joseph's son Ephraim set up their own kingdom called Israel. But after 200 years, they were exiled by Assyria for their idolatry and superstition. They became known as the Lost 10 Tribes of Israel. They have recently been traced to the west and are now powerful nations in surprisingly visible locations. However, the Jews' territory, which consisted of the 2 tribes of Judah and Benjamin, had a very different history. Their kingdom was called Judah or Judea. In 597 BCE, the Babylonians came and destroyed Solomon's temple, and the Jewish people of the kingdom of Judah were carried off to Babylon. Along with them were numerous Levites who lived in Judah and officiated as priests at the temple. They taught the Torah with the 10 Commandments and its associated laws under those 10 categories, which Moses had written out and later Joshua posted for all to read. Young and old were expected to be able to understand them and hold each other accountable to keeping them. Were you aware that these written laws were the original instructions God gave to Moses as Israel's constitution? In Babylon, without a temple and without a land where they could practice their constitution, these Levite leaders became the sages and rabbis who did their best to keep the covenant people cohesive without their covenant land, and not let them assimilate into, or try to keep them from assimilating into, Babylonian culture. It was almost impossible, though. To do so, they collected oral traditions of the elders, which included anecdotes, little stories, and morals, legends, ideas, opinions, and commentaries on the Torah, and judgments of cases based on the written Torah, and later it was commentaries on the commentaries. Later, this Oral Torah was written down and codified in the Talmud and other Jewish writings. It's still called oral, though. It included extra-biblical rules or fences, which became traditions, dearly loved and valued traditions. These rules and traditions merged with the actual Torah or Constitution, and the combination not only diluted the Torah, but also sometimes conflicted with it and added to it, a practice which God had strictly forbidden. This produced a new religion called Rabbinic Judaism, and the Oral Torah came to be seen as not only the revealed words and laws of God, but superseding the actual Torah of God. The rabbis began attributing it to Moses, teaching that it had come down the mountain at Sinai. This practice of attributing a book to someone famous other than the author was to lend credibility to it. The odd thing about doing that with the Talmud is that those rabbis who wrote it had not spoken a word of it until hundreds and thousands of years later, after Moses received the divine words on Mount Sinai. How could he have brought it down the mountain with him? Anyway, the new rabbinic religion was to give structure to the people. However, it kept them focused and dependent on their leaders, who in turn depended on these volumes of earlier studious rabbinic interpretations referred to as the oral law. Because one generation of rabbis taught the next generation of rabbis and seminary students that the Oral Torah was from Moses and superseded the biblical Torah, each generation sincerely embraced the belief and perpetuated it. Studying these man-made laws, they became experts at arguing even minuscule details of the various legal judgments of the laws of Moses, volumes of which had been written down in the Talmud. Because the regular folks looked to them instead of studying for themselves, because the Talmud seemed overwhelmingly difficult and huge volumes and volumes of it, these rabbis were considered and still are considered the experts, or the sole interpreters of the Torah. This may have discouraged many people from accepting the responsibility of going directly to God themselves and studying the Torah constitution privately and discussing its precepts with other friends and families. In my opinion, intelligent and educated Jews, known as keepers of the Torah for 3,000 years, should not need to be dependent on the rabbis for all their biblical questions and answers. They might want to clarify specific rabbinic traditions and observances, but these are cultural matters and never should be equated with the actual written Torah constitution. They're not the words of God. They are a collection of the words of men. So, which is more valid? The stability of a cultural religion that has withstood years and one that instructs you on every detail of your life, or the scary liberty of a more personal connection with God that limits your study to his Torah words in context while allowing you the freedom to interpret it as you feel God is showing you? Do you feel confident doing that? I am very interested in your comments.